Hello, welcome to another drive-in double feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into anything, we got a Patreon over at patreon.com/slash drive-in double feature podcast. You know, I lie awake at night just thinking about how much content we're giving away. I'm like, we're only giving this away for $5. Like, I just can't sleep at night. Just does
Mhm.
can't sleep one wink knowing that that content is just on the table for only $5. But we're doing it as a thank you to you patrons out there for supporting us in the channel. But don't worry, our regular content is not behind any paywall. But today we're going to be talking about 1963's Matango, and that is directed by Ishirō Honda.
And I'm like completing this guy's filmography.
I don't think you ever will. Have you seen how many movies he's directed?
That's true. That's true. And a lot of like just like dramas, it looks like.
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever do that. So don't worry. We could have this whole we could do all 200 episodes just dedicated to Shiryo Honda.
Yeah, but we don't name it like the Ishirō Honda podcast or anything.
We have to get it Han done.
Yes, a good one. Good one.
But no, this one is Matango. A little more different than all of the other movies we did. Is there a monster? Kind of, sort of.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I would say this one is more of a sci-fi horror movie, kind of. You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's like a
more,
horror creature feature, kind of.
yeah, it's a lot more of like man versus nature type of thing instead of
Mhm.
man versus beast or anything like that. So, uh,
I kind of had like a comparison, I guess. Like to me, it felt like a Lord of the Flies meets The Thing, kind of, because it's like a monster that they don't really know or understand.
well, I was gonna say is like the monster aspect of this movie or the sci-fi part of it really doesn't start until like almost an hour into the movie.
No, yeah, it's more of like a stranded on the island type of movie.
It's they're on this island. It's so the movie starts out as a group of like these well-to-do friends that are on a boat,
Yeah.
just kind of partying, having fun.
Well, the real opening is the guy recounting the story, and it's kind of like a noir where he's like, "Oh,
True.
you don't want to know about what happened to me," and it's like really dark and moody. But then it cuts to like we were on a boat just hanging out, which I think is kind of funny.
And then it opens with a musical number.
It does, yeah. And
la
what does she sing? She's like, it's like a la 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 la.
la 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 la. I just she's like a famous actress, singer, I guess, I think. And
Yeah.
she's dating this rich guy. Well, it's not really clear. I get the relationship aspects of these movies are the probably the most confusing part of this movie for
I
me.
I try not to think about it.
But because I was trying to think like, okay, I think she's with that rich guy. The other girl's with the
With
the
the guy,
professor.
yeah, with the professor, those two were definitely together.
Oh, yeah, but did they? Were they together before the trip?
Think so, because it seemed because like isn't that at the beginning where she's like sick, gets seasick, doesn't want to be there anymore, like, oh, you need to talk to your girl or something like that said.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably right. But yeah, they go out and they're partying on the shot, and the I guess the two people that aren't part of the group is the skipper of the boat and I
Hmm.
think his first mate, and
Yeah.
they end up getting caught in a storm. This movie is basically like the sci-fi version of Gilligan's Island, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Like it's they're out on a boat and the boat starts getting rough and
Hmm.
they crash land onto an island of sorts.
Hmm.
Um, and this island is very creepy. It's got a lot of secrets to it.
Yeah.
No, no food to speak of, no animals to speak of, and
Hmm.
for the most part, it's very much like any animal that does show up, they want to get away from this island as soon as possible.
Yeah, exactly. I think they noticed that at one point. I think there's birds flying in and they just turn completely around. And it's hard to find people here too because it's like covered in like dense fog. So their goal the whole time is to just repair their boat and try to get out of there. And it feels like as far as like the boat repair goes, they are working on it at a snail's pace, as slowly as they possibly can. And that, like, there's a scene way later in the movie when they're repairing it, and it's literally just him like tapping a hammer on the side of the boat, which is a silly visual.
Yeah, but they do find an abandoned boat
Mm.
on the island, and it's a much bigger boat than theirs. Like it's an actual like boat like where it's and not a yacht like theirs. And they when they get on the boat, the whole boat is covered in mold,
Yeah.
and they they're wondering like, what is this? What's all this weird stuff everywhere? And they come to find a giant mushroom located in one of the rooms, and they get
Mm-hmm.
rid of it. I guess they don't ever show it in there anymore, but
Yeah, no, but they just they see like a giant mushroom, and that's kind of like this movie. It's a mushroom movie. I guess you probably know this, but I didn't realize until after that this movie in America is called Attack of the Mushroom People. Which
I didn't know that. But yeah, that
oh, you
doesn't
did it.
surprise me.
Yeah, exactly. Even though that's kind of not what the movie is, it's definitely like you said. Like this whole part is kind of like moody and more about everybody turning on each other because they find food in this ship. Actually, the scene where you find them eating food is really funny because the guy is just eating like spam, or at least what looks like spam, straight out of the can in this rusty, moldy ship. I don't know. I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't eat it.
No, but but they hadn't been there that long. It's like they were like starved. Like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
um. So they kind of set up that boat as their base from now on. And the thing I thought was weird. So, like I said, when they get on the ship, it is covered wall to wall, all over the ceiling, all over the floor, and mold. And like literally, like the next scene, it's all gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how long did it take them to clean this boat?
They cleaned it up real good. That don't worry, they were out of water, food, but they brought the cleaning supplies.
I get, yeah, that's true. What did they find cleaning supplies, or did they just happen to have like a bunch of like towels or something, you know, like or Clorox wipes?
Yeah, they found the stash of Clorox wipes. But you are right. It's funny, I didn't notice that, but looking back now, yeah, that's definitely it's weird that they
I mean, it's
just took
perfect. Yeah, it's perfectly clean.
because you got to think about like whenever you're stranded like that preserving your energy that you have, and I don't know if cleaning that boat was the right choice.
Right. That they are just like, oh, okay, well, this is what we have to do. Got to clean.
Yeah.
Because I thought they were going to just stay on their yacht or whatever, but I guess the yacht is smaller. But because I thought that in the beginning too, because
Mm.
there's what there's one, two, three, five, like seven people all together, I think,
Hmm.
and they're all on the yacht, and I'm thinking like that yacht. Where are seven people going to sleep on this yacht?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I guess they do show like everyone had their own little sleeping place or whatever, but it was a tight fit. But they set up there. They do find running water, which is one of the nice things they do have, like one of the few things they have. But they can't find any real food to speak of, other than there's these mushrooms. And at first, they see these mushrooms, and they're like, "Hey, don't touch those. Like we don't know what the
yeah.
deal with those are."
And I think
And
they learn like through ship logs that you're really not supposed to eat these mushrooms because it like causes like paralysis.
yeah, it's paralysis, and they're talked about how it can also cause like a psychedelic effect, like they're on
Um,
drugs.
they're magic
Uh,
mushrooms. That's that's it.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So it's very much like do not eat the mushrooms, and that's they don't for the longest time. I mean,
No.
it's just um, but it kind of gets to the point in the movie, like you said, where it's like a Lord of the Flies situation where they have a very limited amount of like actual food because like there's almost no plant life to speak of. They do find eventually like these roots that kind of look like potatoes or something like that.
Yeah, like they just look like some kind of root vegetable. And I guess it's not satisfying them. It doesn't look very tasty, so I get it.
No, and there's not a lot of them either.
Oh,
So it
they find turtle eggs too at one
right.
point.
They
Yeah.
yeah, the one guy does find turtle eggs, and that's kind of like the thing is one character, the first mate, turns out
Mhm.
to be a total scumbag,
Yeah.
like the big enemy or the big antagonist of this whole thing. And he always wears his sunglasses
Mhm.
like everywhere he goes. I thought that was funny. Like even at nighttime, he was like still wearing his sunglasses.
It's his signature. But I guess he stands out. Some of the characters, like I guess I never learned any of their names or anything. There's a lot going on, but they were all like very distinct, which I liked. I like the singer. I really like. She got really creepy at the end of the movie, and I think it's because everyone looks dirty, disheveled, but she always has like makeup and great hair, and just like not like she's been stranded on this like island for however long, which I found really interesting.
Well, yeah, and then like I said, like one of the first aspects of this first mate does is he tries to he doesn't go through with it, thankfully, but he
Yeah.
does attempt to try to
Yeah.
assault these women in their sleep,
Hmm.
and luckily he gets caught, and he I just thought it was funny though, like he's got to wear his sunglasses on the whole time, and then he ends up stealing some food instead.
Yeah, he steals food. That's the scene where you get the first glimpse of a mushroom person, right? Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, which ends really weirdly. It's a really cool scene because he's scared, and you just see shots of like the mushroom person's pants, and they're really gross because it's like he's covered in mold and he's like dripping wet, like soaked, like dripping, and he's slowly walking towards them. And then you finally see his like face, and he's like mutated. But then the scene kind of just ends and
that
nothing happens.
that was a big like question mark, like wait, what, like did he
Yeah.
just disappear or
Did
was
they
it?
was it like a hallucination? Because this is they've hallucinated without drugs before because they hallucinated, or that guy hallucinated a ship coming at them, but the whole group hallucinated that. I doubt it. So I don't, it's a really odd scene.
Well, that scene was they were still lost at sea, so
That's true.
they weren't even in the on the island yet. But
Yeah.
um that one was that was probably like the biggest question I had, is like what the hell happened there, like what was that even supposed to mean? But
Yeah.
um I did like the effects though. I mean, of that person, it was definitely creepy. I thought,
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it worked really well. But like I said, the movie just kind of turns into like a survival type of movie where they start out as friends, but as these movies go along, they end up kind of betraying each other, or like I'm gonna go steal the food for myself, and or like the one guy. Well, I thought it was funny, like like you said, the first mate, he finds turtle eggs,
Hmm.
and he takes them back to the ship, and he gets like the rich guy to buy turtle eggs from him, and he's just like, I'm rich, baby. Like he just like, and they're still stuck on this island, and it's just like
Yeah.
money means nothing, you guys are dying.
Yeah, because doesn't even the guy say like here, like he's like asking for like a lower amount, like a 1,000 yen, and then he's like, fine, I'll give you 20,000 yen, whatever. It's meaningless, but he still takes it. And you know
Yeah.
what? Spoilers, he doesn't get to use that money.
No,
Yeah.
he's he's one of the first ones. But I I did like though, like they are all kind of starting to deteriorate. So the professor and the his girl, the Marianne or whatever, it's
Yeah, whatever.
basically. But they don't really start falling apart until like the very very end of the movie, and then but everyone is just starting to get their tensions are trying to build. So like the rich guy, I think it's funny where he kind of like secludes himself, and he's trying to still keep his status symbol of being like really rich. So he takes the captain's cabin and separates himself. He tries to steal food as well, and eventually, the elements kind of get to him, and he starts to just like become the sniveling coward because he can't do any of this stuff on his own. And the writer of the group, which he's the first one to succumb to the mushrooms. They he his temper starts to rise and everything, and he like I said, he eventually does steal. I think her name was Mommy.
Yeah, that's right, Mommy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and they just start making out in the middle of the night, and they come in and break it up, and she's kind of like, "See, every man wants me."
Yeah, which I thought was funny. Now there's something about her character that I kind of enjoyed. She's not she's not a great person, but she's actually a really interesting personality in the group. Whereas the other girl here, she doesn't really do too much, honestly.
She's the No, yeah, she doesn't really have much of a personality other than she's like nice,
Yeah,
but
she's the nice one. But what I like about this movie is like when it starts to ramp up, it's kind of about who eats the mushrooms like last. It's like everybody starts eating the mushrooms one by one. We're whittling everybody down to find out like who is eating the mushrooms now.
right. They do eventually get to that point. Like I said, they're kind of like at their wits end, and the writer guy, he's just like, I'm so hungry, I don't care anymore, and he just eats the mushroom, and he's just like, not bad, type of thing, and
Mhm.
he ends up eating a bunch of them, and he shows up back at the boat, and he's just like, I'm so full, you don't even need to give me dinner tonight. Like,
Yeah, but he's also so crazy. He's holding a gun up to everybody a little bit later.
he does, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which is funny. And I mean, and they all know that like slowly you become a mushroom when you eat these mushrooms.
oh yeah, we
Yeah.
don't find that out until later, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's that does eventually happen because the crew on that ship, like the first crew that was on there on that abandoned boat, they
Mhm.
like there was almost no trace of them anywhere, and they can't find any other people on this island nor any dead bodies.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like a giveaway of what's to come ahead. But yeah, the writer, he starts to go crazy. He murders the first mate,
Mhm.
and we're kind of at the point where they're like, "Get out of the camp. You can't be here anymore." And
Mhm.
Mommy ends up going with him too.
Yeah,
And
they end up going together.
right, because I guess she likes him or whatever. I don't know, but
Mhm.
because she and one aspect I actually did like is they start kind of delving into like how selfish some of these people were.
Mhm.
Like I don't know if you remember, like Mommy, like I said, she was dating the rich guy, and pretty much, he was just like, "Oh, I just used you, just I wanted some arm candy." And she's like, "Well, I used your fame, I used your money to get me wherever I wanted to." It's like I didn't really mean to like you that much anyway, type of thing.
Yeah, this is the classic Honda, like, oh, this actually has like a deeper meaning thing about like all these high class people getting together and like, I guess how selfish they really are, like the breakdown of society. I don't have the brain power to look into it, but there's definitely a lot more going on here, which he always seems to be doing.
Yeah, it's definitely I think a good study of some of these characters.
Hmm.
But eventually, the skipper does get the original yacht into some type of working condition,
Hmm.
and the rich guy's like, "Hey, like, we don't need everybody. I mean, we could just take us and
Hmm.
just take the food for ourselves, and we can just get out of here," type of thing. And the skipper's like, "How could you even think that? Like, you're crazy." And
Hmm.
then the skipper leaves by himself, takes all the food with
Yeah, really messed
him.
up.
Yeah, just, but it kind of like, again, it's just everyone's out for their own. They don't really care about what happens to each other.
Exactly. Um, and the few people left that are trying to hold it together, I think it's too late at a certain point, because that's how we get to like the climax of the movie, is come to find out everybody who left is just eating mushrooms at this point, and they've just become dependent on it.
Yeah. The eventually, like the rich guy, he goes off wandering into the woods, and then he comes across Mommy and the writer, and they're like, "Oh, just eat the mushrooms, like you'll love it,
Mm-hmm.
they're so good." And he's at first he kind of like resists, but then like the movie, like I probably like my favorite part was like the scene with all the mushroom people coming to life and like walking
Yeah.
around, and the writer kind of like sticking his head like above like the ground, and like with like he's got like these like big patches of gray on his face, and kind of like waving like hey type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Do you know who plays one of these mushroom people? I bet you can make a guess.
Is it Nakajima?
Yeah, Nakajima plays one of these mushroom people. But yeah, this is really cool. I mean, it comes super late at the end of the movie, where it starts to become like a horror movie in a way, because
Mm-hmm.
that's when the mushroom people start to pop out, and it starts to be like freaky, and like everything's covered in mushrooms, and it's just like it's really gross. I think it's really cool. I think it's actually a really cool reveal.
Yeah, I liked it. It was a good reveal. I mean, I
Mhm.
I knew what was coming because I already knew about like the lore of this movie,
Yeah.
but like I did, but I still I think it was a pretty neat reveal. That's probably like the best way to go into this movie, is to just go in 100% blind. So,
I agree.
um,
And that's exactly how I went in. I forgot that you made the mushroom pizza comment. So I completely even forgot about that until I was halfway through.
so what were you thinking was going to happen?
I didn't know. I really didn't know. I knew it was going to be a stranded movie. I had no idea. And I think that maybe have helped out the movie a lot.
Were you thinking like a giant monster was going to show up?
I did. I thought it was a monster movie. It was a Honda movie, and we normally do monster movies here. And it's not a traditional monster movie, but I think I like that. I didn't come out disappointed. I came out like, oh, that was actually really interesting to see something different.
No, and I like too that like the island has like is more of like the antagonist. It's like that's like
It's
the real
true.
monster is like the people, like the actual island, and not so more so like an actual monster movie. Which I mean there is, like the mushrooms do walk around and everything, but
Hmm.
um they all eventually do succumb to the mushrooms. The skipper who stole the yacht ends up crash landing back on the island and ends up dying.
Yeah.
And uh I and they do take the girl out back to the mushroom. Like she gets stolen away. Oh, like one thing I think I thought was a funnier moment was she's like on her like it's down to like the main girl and the professor, and they're both like just so hungry, and like he is bringing back like minuscule amounts of food that he can find,
Hmm.
and she's like, it's like, did you eat? He's like, that's all the food I found. Like I haven't eaten a thing. and
Yeah.
and she's like getting so desperate that she starts screaming like, let's just eat the mushrooms, let's just do it, like who cares? And he smacks her,
Hmm.
and then she's like, oh, you're always so rational.
By slap. Sean Connery would be proud.
Yeah.
Um, I actually like the twist reveal. Where, because you remember, this is a story being told to us, where he's like, oh, and I ate the mushrooms, and he turns around and he's got the distorted face in the hospital.
Yeah, like I know I remember the beginning, but by the time we had gotten to this point, I had forgotten about
Yeah,
the beginning.
because normally
And
movies like this have like at least a few sections where it cuts back to like, oh yeah, remember, this is a story being told. This doesn't have that.
right. And because I honestly forgot that he even survived, that
Hmm.
that he was the one telling the story, because it's the professor that telling it, and he does eventually, like the mushrooms do crowd him and everything, and but he does eventually be able to break away and get back onto the boat that
Hmm.
crash landed, and he's able to eventually get rescued. But we come to find out he's behind bars too.
Yes, yeah.
When he's telling this story, and turns out, like you said, he's got the markings of that he ate the mushroom, so he's just kind of like, I guess, addicted to these mushrooms now. I don't know, and they don't really
I don't know.
reveal what his fate is, other than he's probably going to be in a mental asylum for like the rest of his life.
Wow, how depressing! What a depressing end to the movie.
Yeah, well, it definitely is not a happy ending movie. Like
No.
it's not like all the other Godzilla movies. Like, oh, half the city is destroyed, but we're fine. Ha 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 ha. You know.
We survived. That's all that matters. No, this is definitely like dark, sad, and it's a horror movie. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, is it cheesy in some points? Yeah, it is. I mean,
Hmm.
it's it's like it's like a sci-fi movie from the 60s, but you know what? I had a really good time with it. I mean,
Me too. Yeah.
it's uh it's not amazing by any means, but you know what? I was pretty entertained for the hour and a half of this movie. So, if you love a good sci-fi movie, everything like that, like I said, I mean, if you got to this point, you already heard all the spoilers, but if you I would try to go in blind if you can.
Yeah.
If hopefully if you thought this was interesting, you would have shut off our episode, and
And
because
then when to go watch it. Yeah.
went to go watch it. But regardless, I thought it worked. I mean, I think at the time it was probably one of the more impressive movies out back then for sci-fi horror movies. So I definitely say check it out. Give it a recommend.
No, I agree. I highly recommend it. I think it's a really cool little horror movie. Like you said, not amazing, but I think it's really interesting. I haven't really seen much like it, in which I can always appreciate that. So I say check it out.
Definitely. Well, that's going to do it for Bondzilla this month, Nathan. So we're going to get back into our regularly scheduled program. And you're going to tell us the first movie in our double feature, Nathan.
All right. So our first movie of our double feature, which will be on Tuesday, is Rock and Roll High School, made in 1979, and that's currently streaming on Tubi.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Have you seen it before?
I have not, no.
Okay, cool. But Ryan, what's our second movie of our double feature?
Well, Nathan, it's December. What's the number one thing on people's mind right now?
Well, I know it's not going to be Christmas. I don't even know. What's like another genre movie? Detectives. Everyone's thinking about detectives.
Well, you're kind of right, but that's not what everyone's thinking about. But
Okay.
the number one thing on people's mind is, of course, Elliot Gould again.
All I get out of this is everyone's thinking about Elliot Gould always.
A year round, people are thinking of Elliot Gould.
Yeah, Gould freaks. Yes.
So we are going to be talking another Elliot Gould movie.
Yes.
And it is, but you were right. It is a detective movie. Well, specifically a Vice Squad movie, and it is called Busting. And that one is also for.
Of course. Oh, yeah, Busting. Yeah, I know all about it.
Yeah, Busting makes me feel good. And that is streaming right now on Tubi. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode this week. If you have any thoughts and opinions of our podcast, please email us over at drive-in-double-feature-podcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on X at DIDFpod. And once again, check out the Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in-double-feature-podcast. But eat this mushroom.
Okay, sure.
Until next time.
Until next time.